Hi everyone, Monica here from Disadvantage Journey. We're going to go over Vanlife Basics and ensuring the safety of your consumables in a van. So basically this is like looking at your expiry dates, your use by dates, and looking at all of your products in your vehicle every so often, and we'll talk about how often. Basically, I know that there's been articles out there how people are throwing away products that are still good, including medications. They're still good after their expiry date, but we're going to talk about the reasons why this doesn't really apply to anyone storing any of those consumable products in a vehicle or RV. You actually may have to discard these before their expiry date for the reasons we're going to talk about. So this lifestyle increases the need for assessment to find out the safety, effectiveness, or potential toxicity of products that you're keeping in your vehicle. We want to prevent food poisoning, which would mean seeing a doctor, hospital, potentially medication, and it could actually even kill you in the long run. So it's something really important to look at and remember. Bad glue or paint that you use during a renovation could actually make you have to redo everything and actually spend time pulling off all that bad stuff that you put on. But awareness of the problems and the indications of degradation will actually save your resources and potentially prevent sickness and even death. So we hope you enjoy this topic. So the things that we're going to cover in this video, just so you're completely aware, is what are consumables, how often do you need to assess them, reasons why this is so important, how do manufacturers actually even set up expiry dates or use by dates or other dating criteria, and why items kept in a vehicle or RV can be more greatly impacted. So the greatest factors that we're going to discuss are temperature, humidity, light, salinity, and also what the consequences of degradation can be to you and your health and why you have to do this. We also want to talk about what to do with any medications that you find that are no longer good or you're not going to use, and what you can do with those. Now basically stores do this all the time. So any store, especially food or pharmaceutical ones or ones with chemicals, they're going to inspect often, every 1 to 3 months as a matter of fact. And they have great temperature, humidity, and light control in comparison to what you could ever achieve in your vehicle or RV. So what are consumables? They're non-durable, so not lasting very long, soft goods that people use recurrently, so over and over again. Things like toothpaste that you use every morning would be considered a consumable. But in addition, it would also be things like food items or food-related items like herbs and spices, cleaners, building necessities like glue and paint, and pretty much anything with adhesives or liquids or oils are all consumable items. The list is much greater, but we want to try to keep this video short. Now, how often should you be doing this? At least twice a year. We actually do it every spring and fall. And you're going to basically look at any packaged, canned, any condiments, medications, or products of any kind for building or for your vehicle. And you don't want to forget about things like makeup and cleansers and any other tubes, jars, or rolls that may not have been mentioned so far. And in addition to doing it twice a year, every single time that you use a product, you need to do a quick visual assessment, looking for the signs that we're going to discuss. And if you find any of them, to discard it and replace it. When in doubt, throw it out. So the reasons why that this is so important is eating spoiled food can make you sick, cause permanent organ damage, or even kill you. Using spoiled building materials or vehicle fluids can require costly vehicle repair or renovation redos, like we already talked about. Using spoiled medicinals or supplies can directly cause death, injury, or be ineffective. If ineffective, the condition that you require that medication for could actually kill you. An example would be nitroglycerin tablets or spray. You think it's going to work and it's not, and you have angina and you actually end up dying from heart complications. So that's why it's so important. Also, spoiled consumables can be unsafe, toxic, or ineffective. So there can be a change in consistency or quality. They can increase in their potency or concentrations. They start losing water, especially through plastic containers, and they become more concentrated. The properties of them, or the active properties of them, could become ineffective. It can actually change the makeup, making like the makeup of the chemical itself and making it toxic. Or in the example of a can of peaches freezing and then thawing, they could actually become mushy or separated in salad dressings, for example, and they won't go back together no matter how hard you shake that bottle. You can lose product quality, the color, the consistency, or the nutrition of it, and increasing the packaging being compromised, or the chance of the packaging being compromised. So there could actually be a broken seal or mold, or the container bloated, as an example. Okay, so how do the manufacturers establish expiry dates anyways? Basically, their expiry dates are set because of studies based on product degradation, the process of decay for that particular chemical or product, whatever it may be, and how it's affected. Is it affected by air or light or humidity or temperature? Can they reduce that by the packaging type that they package it in? Also, are there any preservatives used, like sugar and salt? And definitely the packaging used is a huge determinant of what those expiry dates are. So basically, their expiry dates are all set on unopened packages. So an expiry date, once you open that package or that bottle or that vial or whatever it may be, is no longer good. So don't open it and say, well, it's 3 years in the future, it's good for 3 years. That's just not the case. They are based on an unopened product that's not being affected by air or humidity or anything else. Basically, most items, food, medication, and most chemicals should all be stored in a cool, clean, dry, dark place, and no higher than 21 degrees Celsius. And as a matter of fact, medications should never be in 30 degrees Celsius or above. And that's quite an easy temperature to obtain in the summer in a vehicle if you leave windows closed. So why am I saying that just because we're storing these in a vehicle or RV are all bets off when it comes to expiry dates or use by dates? Well, basically temperature. We'll start with temperature. Temperature is very difficult to control in a vehicle or RV. I don't care if you have it insulated, whatever you have, it's still difficult to control. So we also don't normally heat or cool the vehicle when we're not in it. And the fact is, we really should only be living out of our vehicles. That's the whole reason many of us move into a vehicle in the first place, is to be able to live life. And you can't do that if you're staying in your vehicle. So pretty much 80% of your time is probably, well, let's say 60%, just because of the sleeping and the cooking time. So we'll say 60%, just to give everybody a little bit extra leeway there. So 60% of your time is spent outside of the vehicle. So you're not going to be heating or cooling it when you're not in it. It's going to use up valuable resources and power. Basically, any increase in temperature fluctuation increases the risk of deterioration of any of the products that you have in the vehicle. And those RV fridges, whether they're a compressor fridge, whatever you want to call them, 12-volt propane, they are very difficult to maintain a set temperature. They fluctuate quite a bit. And not everybody actually even functions with a fridge or cooler. We don't. We buy fresh daily pretty much, or we use up longer lasting materials that we have in the van if we can't find a store or something. But basically we buy what we need for the day, we cook what we buy, and we eat what we cook, and nothing's stored. Okay, but I'm going to give you these range of temperatures. And just to show you how difficult they are to maintain. So if a product says to store in freezer, they mean minus 15 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius. If they say to store refrigerated, they mean +2 to +8 degrees Celsius at the very most. If they say cool, they mean +8 to +15 degrees. And if they say room or ambient temperature, they mean 15 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius at the absolute max. Normally it's 21 degrees Celsius. Okay, so a high temperature, think of anything protein related, and think of what happens to an egg in high temperature. There's a chemical change that takes place, right? The egg completely changes form and it can never go back to its original form. So any sort of proteins, and in many cases a lot of vegetable oils, might actually be affected this way as well. And other proteins that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but even canned meats and fish actually have store conditions that are about 4 degrees Celsius. Did any of you know that? I doubt it. Basically, oils can go rancid, and basically another thing that you probably didn't know is if you buy ground pepper, pepper has a lot of oil in it. So many people buy a big thing of pepper and they use it over 3 or 4 years to try to finish up that pepper that they have, but meanwhile, because of the storage conditions or keeping it in the kitchen or above the stove, it's in contact with heat and steam from food and all of those things, and basically it goes rancid. They keep having stomach issues every time they eat at home, and it's like, well, maybe it's my wife's cooking. No, it's the pepper that's being used, and you're getting a stomach ache from the pepper, not your wife's cooking this time. Just thought I'd throw that little extra tidbit of information in. But basically, another thing with temperature is that when the temperature goes really low, especially where we live, it can actually go down to -40. It typically sits around -25, -30 for several weeks during the winter, just where we are. And we're also up another 1,600 meters from where the temperature is recorded from our particular place. So that's why I'm saying those temperatures. I actually had somebody make a comment that in the Kootenays it never gets that cold. Well, I'm sorry, bud, but we actually have recorded temperatures photographed of -42, -40, -45 for 2 weeks in a row. So yes, it can, especially if you're up higher than where the weather is recorded. But basically, in that condition, the nutrition might be okay, but the texture will change. So just like what we talked about with the peaches, the nutrition would be fine, but the peaches would be all mushy. So would you want to eat that? Probably not. Glass bottles or jars can break easily. We've had jars of pickles or banana peppers break, and you don't want to be cleaning that mess up in the winter. It's really difficult to get rid of the smell. Just thought I'd throw that one in too. But plastic can crack at that temperature as well, and meds in vials or ampules burst. So if you're needing to use ampules for a breathing condition, or you are taking parenteral, or you're needing to inject painkillers or whatever it may be, those can break, so you definitely want to protect them. And plus, if it's certain things with proteins or things like that, or hormones, they can totally be inactivated at those temperatures, and you're not controlling them all the time in your vehicle. So just food for thought. Basically, any of the extremes, high or low, can damage any emergency meds as well. So your insulin or your EpiPens for an allergic reaction, as well as some other really important meds like nitroglycerins or immunoglobulins. So just keep those things in mind, that it is really dangerous and really important to be doing this. Okay, so I also already talked about hormonal meds, but I didn't mention ones that you might find extremely important, ones that like birth control, for example, or thyroid medications. All of a sudden your thyroid medication stops working and the doctor starts increasing your dose, but then you take it and your body overreacts. Well, it's because the original pills weren't working anymore. Other things like anticoagulants that you're taking because you don't want to have a stroke, so like dalteparin, or other things like diagnostic items that are super important, especially to people like Eddie that has like diabetes. So your diabetic test strips, pregnancy or ovulation strips, they're not only affected by temperature, but also something else that we're going to talk about shortly, humidity. The effects on medications such as like antibiotics that are stored incorrectly, they can cause kidney damage in some cases, as well as stomach damage. Aspirin itself, like how many people keep aspirin in their vehicle and just leave it there and forget about it, and then they start taking aspirins? Oh, it's because it's an anti-inflammatory, that's why it's hurting my stomach. No, actually aspirin is one of those meds that it can increase stomach issues when it's not stored properly. So storing it in your vehicle has damaged the aspirin and it's no longer good. Another thing like hydrocortisone, many people use for eczema or other skin conditions, and it can separate, and once it separates, it's no good. It needs to be thrown away. So on to humidity now. So basically humidity is based on 65% humidity maximum for all of these products. So how many people know when it goes up or way below that? Both extremes, just like temperature, can cause issues. And that's almost impossible to maintain unless you have even if you have a trailer with a dehumidifier in it, you're going to have a difficult time maintaining that humidity throughout the whole living area or where all these products are stored. So just keep that in mind. Even a dehumidifier is not going to help the humidity issues. With more humidity comes increased rust. The products can also sweat. And once there is rust on a product, it can allow air into that product, causing degradation. And then that actually might give you the swollen can or swollen packaging that I've already mentioned a little bit, but we're going to get into those things that you're supposed to be looking out for shortly. Also increases the effects with dried products. So even if it's beans, if you're in a huge high humidity area or in the winter and it constantly keeps getting wet in your unit, and you have beans stored and there's no airflow around there, your beans could actually start growing in the vehicle. Like just those types of things. So even though you have a dried product and you think it's safe, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe. If you add salt into the mix, so you're sitting there by the beach in Spanish Banks, for example, or anywhere else on the West Coast or East Coast or wherever you're near the ocean, it doesn't even have to be by the ocean. It can actually be in any area that gets snow and the roads get salted. You can actually have increased atmospheric salt or salinity, which increases corrosion not only on your vehicle but on your canned items. So basically also So just the fluid itself or salt, it can change the pH of products. Tablets can swell or become soft with the humidity itself. Wood can swell and shrink in lack of humidity. Dried foods and spices can be damaged, like I already talked about. Spices can actually clump together and be so hard that they're almost impossible to break apart. And then once they've clumped together like that, you don't really want to use them, because the properties, they probably had some salt, or they actually probably had something that actually had oil in it, some pepper or something. So once it clumps together, you want to actually throw that out. And lack of humidity, like I mentioned, is bad too. So it can increase the concentration of products, especially when they're stored in plastic. Plastic is actually porous, and it can actually pull the moisture out of the product, and then it increases the concentration of the product. It can dry out seals, whether it be the rubber seals on your doors or windows in your vehicle, or the belts in your engines, as well as adhesives. Adhesives are very prone. So if you, like these are solid wood, but if you have any like laminated items or anything like that, the adhesive can fail, and then you're going to have to redo that. Okay. The next element we're going to talk about is light. So it might be easy to avoid light in a cargo van that has no windows, but many of us have windows. In fact, you've seen our van. It's completely, almost 100% around the vehicle. But you can also have light come in through skylights or vents. So this could be something that can affect anybody. Basically, light increases the risk of deterioration. And don't think it's in an amber bottle, it's okay. No, that's actually a falsehood. Amber bottles just mean that it's super highly reactive, and it's to actually give you a message to make sure that you keep that dark. So keep it in a paper bag or whatever you need to do, or in a cupboard, so that it's kept dark. Food can basically be bleached out. So the color off of any green ingredients, or red or orange, like the important ones. They can also damage or cause a chemical reaction or change in medications or solutions, especially like those parenterals that we're talking about, like in vials that you have to inject, like vitamin B12. Some people take vitamin B12 shots all the time, or iron possibly. Basically, light can cause oxidation, just like humidity or exposure to air itself. Oxidation in oils also increases the risk of the rancidity. So things like nuts or chips, biscuits, the pepper, like what I talked about, and anything of vitamin B and C, which most cereals are fortified with now. So be very, very careful with cereals. Buy the small boxes, don't buy the big ones, don't buy anything in bulk. You only buy what you need, and the smallest portion that you can purchase, and that helps keep your stuff safe. And use it and rotate it. So if you have an older box, use that up before you open the new one. Okay, I know it might take away from some of your variety, because you want to have 3 or 4 boxes of cereal open, but for safety for yourself, don't do it. Okay. So some of the things that you're looking at for with deterioration is like a change in color, a change in odor, the stability of the product, like what I was talking about, the salad dressing before. No matter how hard you shake it, it's not going to go back together after it's something and it's destroyed. It'll actually stay separated no matter what you do. And also consistency of products. And remember, it's not always visible. So when in doubt, throw it out. The color usually is either faded, and when it's faded, it means a loss of nutrients, like so those antioxidants or the vitamin C, like that type of thing. So basically the red, the oranges, the greens are easily damaged. So if you see them faded, just think that it doesn't really have as much nutritional value, so is it worth eating? So basically the vitamins C, E, K, and folate, which is B9, are the ones that are damaged most easily out of like all of them. The fat-soluble vitamins are a little bit more stable. But remember what we talked about, fats get rancid, so they can be damaged in that respect. Tablets or creams can also become brown or yellow in color, so that's the other color change that you might see. Now, when we're talking about consistency or stability, we basically want to, first of all, when we're looking at an item, check, is the seal intact? Is there a separation of liquids that's not usual for this type of product? I mean, if it's peanut butter and it's natural peanut butter with no preservatives in it, it's going to separate no matter what you do. So you got to know your products and know, is this unusual for that product? So like the salad dressing I've used multiple times now. Also, solutions with any sort of debris in them, or when you go to use a cream and it's like, oh, what, it feels like there's sand in my cream. That means that the solute is actually come out of the cream and it's actually not good. You need to throw that away and don't use it, because the amount of active ingredient is not standard all the way through. It's actually pulled away from the actual cream, so you're not getting the right amount of active ingredient. So if it's like something like hydrocortisone, it can actually thin the skin too much if it's too concentrated, or not be effective at all if it's too weak. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I gotta look at my notes. Also, things like chipped tablets, or a sticky coating of tablets. So tablets that are a little bit shiny, they're usually coated. So it could be a sugar coating or some other thing. So that would mean that like oxygen or moisture got in there and they're sticking together, or they feel sticky. Those wouldn't be no good anymore, because that coating might be on there to make it take longer for your stomach to digest, or for them to digest further along in the digestive tract. So you don't want to take those meds if that's the case. Also, things like vitamin E tablets that are like gel caps, if they're sticking together, don't use them. Okay. Microbial action you're going to look for, so things like swollen packages or swollen seals. Seals should actually be concave, sucked in, and if they're not, that means that the seals probably be broken. Do you see mold around anywhere, or bubbles in a sealed package? So like look at a bottle, and if you see bubbles in there and it hasn't been opened yet, oh, don't even try to smell it, don't try to open it, nothing. It's most likely bad and there's a chemical reaction going on inside. Other things, if you do have a fridge, you could have freezer burn. And everybody knows milk with clumps you don't use, or cheese with green stuff on it. Either you cut it away or you don't use it, one of the two. If the taste is ever off, immediately get rid of it. Don't take a chance. Food poisoning is not fun, and it can actually be worse than just food poisoning. If the texture's not normal, so like that freezer burnt ice cream, or if it's mushy like those peaches that were frozen and thawed, or creams or suppositories that have melted and then they've returned to a normal temperature, don't use them, because the active ingredient is no longer stable or standard through it, just like that other cream I was telling you about that has precipitate in it somewhere. Also, some items, once opened, the expiry date can be very short, or they're easily contaminated items, such as like eye drops. Like if you open it and you don't use it up within 3 months, for example, eye drops for allergies. So if you don't use it during that allergy season, throw it away. Don't save it for the next season or for the fall or whatever it may be. Eye drops are easily contaminated, and there's not as much preservative usually in them to protect against it. sorry, lost my train of thought again. Food, maximum 1 year after opening. Keeping it in a vehicle where the temperature fluctuates and all of the other things that we've talked about. And basically, sorry, the other things are like makeup. Now, lots of people don't think about makeup and they'll actually carry it around and try using it for years. Oil might be in makeup, even water. But remember, water can actually easily grab bacteria and other things out of the air. So even if it's a water-based makeup, you don't want to be keeping it for very long. Basically, makeup for 6 months. And a lot of the makeup packages actually have a little 6 months after opening. They have this little logo on it. So like that clearly tells you makeup is not good for more than 6 months, even if water-based, like I just mentioned. Cleansers are probably good for a year, or moisturizers. But remember, moisturizers can be affected by heat a lot more readily than a cleanser. So you might want to just keep it at that 6 months. And mascara, only 4 to 6 months. And if you've touched your eye with your mascara accidentally, now you've put bacteria from your eye onto the mascara brush and it's going to stay there and you're going to keep getting repeated eye infections. So if you do accidentally scratch your eye with your mascara, pretty much throw that away, or your eyeliner. It's the same boat as mascara, 4 to 6 months. And touch your eye with it and throw it away or sharpen it and get rid of any of that. Sorry, I think I need to take a drink of water. Sorry, I've been terribly dying with allergies for like the last 3 months, I think. So I keep having issues with my voice and everything else, so I really apologize for that. How we can prevent deterioration. Well, the easiest thing to do is avoid overbuying, like I already kind of alluded to earlier, and buy often. And if you do have something, rotate it. So if you know you're gonna not be able to go do shopping for a week or something, make sure you're rotating the product. Rotate your pastas, whatever it may be, rotate it. Long life dehydrated products, remember they can deteriorate or spoil as well, so don't buy huge bags of them. I used to buy like 20 kilo bags of rice. Now I buy like 5 kilos just because our usage has gone down quite a bit, but keep things like that in mind. Also, savory dips or gravies, buy them when you need them. Don't store them at all. They're really affected by temperature and humidity especially. And always check for insects. So anything flowers or cereals, always check for bugs in them. It's just something really important you should do, because it's really easy to get them into the environment by accident or having the doors or windows open all the time. Another super important thing is read the packages of all the stuff. So just like you probably didn't know about canned meat or fish, a lot of them requiring to store at 4 degrees Celsius. There might be other products that you're using or keeping in your vehicle that need special storage requirements that you can't maintain, so you probably don't want to buy it, or you want to buy a very tiny portion of it instead, or buy it when you need it and you're going to use it right away. And another item that you probably didn't know that there's issues with is anything with aspartame. Aspartame is very volatile and affected, and when effective, it actually becomes really icky tasting. So the whole taste of everything changes when it goes bad. And it's in so many different sugar-free or low sugar products now. So just really look if it has aspartame in it. Really question if you should be keeping it in your van. I'm not going to tell you that it's a really bad product and it's something you shouldn't probably use, but just really think about it based on the environment that you're going to be storing it in. And of course, buy little and buy often, like I started out with. Chemical bonds and composition can be basically affected by all of the elements, as well as some other products, such as like even products like Band-Aids, There's no expiry date on them, but the packaging, once the integrity of the packaging's been ruined, it's no good. Or any sterile rolls of gauze, things like that, they're no good. So don't keep a lot of products like that in your vehicle because they're going to get ruined. Keep a small amount for a short period of time when you can go out and buy new band-aids or butterfly strips or whatever you're going to need for that injury that you got or whatever. Have something small on hand, but that's it. Have a small emergency kit. And that'll be in another video, things that you need to absolutely have for emergencies in your van. Sorry, I've been terribly dying with allergies for like the last 3 months, I think. So I keep having issues with my voice and everything else, so I really apologize for that. How we can prevent deterioration. Well, the easiest thing to do is avoid overbuying, like I already kind of alluded to earlier, and buy often. And if you do have something, rotate it. So if you know you're gonna not be able to go do shopping for a week or something, make sure you're rotating the product. Rotate your pastas, whatever it may be, rotate it. Long life dehydrated products, remember they can deteriorate or spoil as well, so don't buy huge bags of them. I used to buy like 20-kilo bags of rice. Now I buy like 5 kilos just because our usage has gone down quite a bit, but keep things like that in mind. Also, savory dips or gravies, buy them when you need them. Don't store them at all. They're really affected by temperature and humidity especially. And always check for insects. So anything flowers or cereals, always check for bugs in them. It's just something really important you should do because it's really easy to get them into the environment by accident or having the doors or windows open all the time. Another super important thing is read the packages of all the stuff. So just like you probably didn't know about canned meat or fish, a lot of them requiring to store at 4 degrees Celsius. There might be other products that you're using or keeping in your vehicle that need special storage requirements that you can't maintain. So you probably don't want to buy it, or you want to buy a very tiny portion of it instead, or buy it when you need it and you're going to use it right away. And another item that you probably didn't know that there's issues with is anything with aspartame. Aspartame is very volatile and affected, and when effective, it actually becomes really icky tasting. So the whole taste of everything changes when it goes bad. And it's in so many different sugar-free or low sugar products now. So just really look if it has aspartame in it. Really question if you should be keeping it in your van. I'm not going to tell you that it's a really bad product and it's something you shouldn't probably use, but just really think about it based on the environment that you're going to be storing it in. And of course, buy little and buy often, like I started out with. Chemical bonds and composition can be basically affected by all of the elements, as well as some other products, such as like even products like band-aids. There's no expiry date on them, but the packaging, once the integrity of the packaging's been ruined, it's no good. Or any sterile rolls of gauze, things like that, they're no good. So don't keep a lot of products like that in your vehicle because they're going to get ruined. Keep a small amount for a short period of time when you can go out and buy new band-aids or butterfly strips or whatever you're going to need for that injury that you got or whatever. Have something small on hand, but that's it. Have a small emergency kit. And that'll be in another video, things that you need to absolutely have for emergencies in your van. So what to do with those medications or medical products such as sharps, test strips, lancets, any of those items that are either expired or you're not going to use again, or like antibiotics that you're allergic to and aren't going to use. It's the law that every pharmacy in Canada, while open, needs to take those items and dispose of them properly with medical waste. So please do Take them into any pharmacy, anywhere that you are, and dispose of them properly to save the environment. Never flush them down toilets or throw them in garbage. Animals can get to them and it can severely harm our ecosystem. So please do the right thing. Okay, so we've covered why assessment's so important, as well as knowing the signs, although we haven't covered all of them, just the main basic ones. The environment's very difficult to control in a vehicle or RV, and the effects can be inconvenient or mushy or reduced ineffectiveness, all the way to adhesive being no good, or the viscosity compromised and expensive repairs. Life-saving meds like insulin or nitro, ineffective and could cost your life. And spoiled food could give you botulism or death. So keep your eyes open. Do those assessments every time you use a product because of the storage in a vehicle, as well as that twice yearly check of everything. Remember, in doubt, throw it out. It could save your life. Basically, we hope this content's been informative. It's something that is of interest to you and helpful, and of course necessary knowledge. If it is, please like it. Please give us your comments or feedback. We really appreciate that to know if we're on the right track with the content that we're providing. And also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. We appreciate you and we appreciate your support. Thanks so much.